The Toy Photographers Podcast. We are storytellers. What's up, everybody? This is Dagobah Days with the Toy Photographers Podcast. We have an incredible episode prepared for you guys. We have the one, the only, Mr. Jason Young on the other line. What is up, Jason?
Hey, Dakota, how's it going, man? It's good to be here.
It is good, man. It's good to have you on. I know this is actually one of my personal anticipated episodes, so I'm glad that you're able to come on the show, and I can't wait to get started here.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, we've known each other for a while, so it's just like kind of having a regular conversation. But it's really fun to be a part of the podcast, and I love everything you're doing. The last few episodes have just been awesome. It's cool to like hear more about community members, but from their perspective and hearing their voice. So it's an honor to be part of the group.
Thank you so much, man. It has been a joy to have everybody on the podcast so far, and just the community support has been amazing. Having everybody be able to throw in their opinions and their insight. It's been a real collaborative process. So I'm so grateful that everybody is enjoying it and wants more content like this. So we're going to keep doing it as long as people are listening.
Absolutely.
Your Instagram account, man. Let's talk about how you started your Instagram account and where you kind of dipped your toes into toy photography initially.
Sure. I mean, I think it's funny, like even going back and listening to some of the other episodes, I think some of our stories are similar in terms of, a lot of us are like Star Wars fans, and with the Force Awakens that came out and new Star Wars toys and all those things, it kind of reinvigorated kind of the kid in us. And at that point, I was on Instagram and I started seeing some accounts actually posting toy photography. I was like leaking into my design, account, my design world. And I was just kind of blown away, like, oh, that's pretty awesome. And to kind of back up, I do, as Invisible Element, that's my company, my business. I do animation, which call motion design, illustration, branding. So I live in that creative space. And so I've been in the kind of production world, but most on the post side. So I'd work with editors, I'd create these great shows, and then I would package them with graphics. And so never kind of behind the camera, but it's something I've always was interested in, learning how to use a camera, doing photography, doing video. And kind of around the same time, that's when all this stuff kind of hit with Force Awakens and toys, and like, hey, people are doing this. Maybe it's okay if I do it too. I'm an adult, but I still love it, right?
Right. Exactly. And it's so funny, man, that you started around the Force Awakens, because I feel like a lot of people did. I feel like a lot of accounts started around that time. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I think if anything, I mean, there are a lot of guys who've been doing it way before that. I mean, we're talking like 5, 6, 10 years before that even kind of cropped up. But I would say it's kind of a resurgence. It was just becoming more well known. And I think Instagram, helps that with just being able to share imagery along with story. I think that was just like the perfect platform for more kind of eyes on it.
Totally.
And so I ended up getting a camera, which I'm still using, my Canon 6D. That was about like, I think it was 2015, like December of 2015, and really wanted to kind of learn how to use it. Again, understanding kind of conceptually how it works in like video production, but never really doing it myself. So I got the camera and then really was interested in trying to figure out how to do low light photography. And I had some figures that I received. The first Black Series figure was the Boba Fett. Like at that point, that I got that for Christmas, along with like Darth Maul and some of the OG like original Black Series figures, which I love to this day.
Nice.
And I had those, and I was like, I'm gonna try to, seeing what people are doing on Instagram with toy photography. I'm just gonna do it and see where it goes, and just learn as I'm kind of playing with the toys. And I had a couple shots, and like this is really fun because one, I'm around toys and that kind of reinvigorating my creativity, but then also I'm learning as I'm doing it. Kind of adding something else to the tool belt of just creative tools that I use every day. So
nice. So when you first started out, did you have anybody that really inspired you to take it to the next level? I know that you, when I first came across your account, you really seemed to have a grasp of toy photography from the beginning.
Oh,
And
thanks.
like you said, you had that background in media and marketing,
Yeah.
and so that kind of gave you a step up on your journey as a toy
hmm
photographer. Did you have anybody that you kind of tried to emulate or model your toy photography after in the beginning?
I think most of it was just like kind of discovery at first. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of guys like everybody. I think everybody's mentioned Sergeant Bananas for the most part. Johnny, he was as far as like doing like Star Wars toy photography. He was kind of the first where he already had kind of his foot planted in the ground. He's been sharing stuff, and that was some of the stuff that I had seen kind of to begin with. Captain Chaos, Fav models, some of those guys were some of the original ones that I remember. And it was cool seeing how they approached toy photography. For myself, I'm like, man, I don't usually go, I don't want to go outside. I don't really have these beautiful locations. So I thought, what can I do indoors? And again, doing compositing, doing that type of stuff for video, kind of was like, I can actually do this with a computer screen. I don't need to like print out a background, even though that works well.
Right.
I can just pull up, I can choose right now. I can go and find like 10 images or screenshots from a movie and then figure out which one works best for this figure, which, I like the lighting on this or whatever. And then kind of just worked on using kind of the screens for my backgrounds because it just was one less thing I had to think about. I didn't have to build a diorama. I didn't have to go and find an image, then print it. It was just right there. And so kind of I was trying to just figure out how can I do things efficiently and quick and get something that still looks pretty professional, pretty solid. So
Nice.
um,
Did you coin that phrase digirama, digital diorama? Is that something that you
I,
coined or did someone else kind of coin that? Because I know that, like you said, that that's something that you kind of specialize in. Is that
yeah.
something that you made up?
Well, at the time, I mean, I don't know. I think at the time, I was trying to figure out a good, for myself, a name for like what I could call it, and it just kind of I like wordplay, and so that kind of felt right. I think when I used a hashtag, I think there might have been like maybe less than 10 people who had done it, but
Okay.
I don't really know. There wasn't any kind of like overarching like context of like this is using a screen for background. It just seemed like it was kind of random.
Gotcha.
But I kind of started using that because I was like, okay, this makes sense and it sounds good too.
Well,
So
it's synonymous. It's synonymous whenever I think of your work. I always think of, well, he's got some sort of digital element involved somehow. Even if it's,
yeah.
you have the practical dioramas involved, you do have
Mhm.
that digital effect. And I love it,
Yeah.
man. I really do enjoy
Thank you.
your digital dioramas that you do. And
Thank
it's
you.
amazing how you seamlessly incorporate those backgrounds into your photos. And I think one of the
Oh yeah.
first ones that I really just stared at for a long time was the Django Fett. And you had him just
Mhm.
placed on your table. It was either your desk or your table, and you had just a lamp positioned overhead, and he was like had a blaster, and he was pointing down
Yeah.
at the ground. I was just amazed. I was like, wow, that just looks so real. It
Mm.
looked in scale. It looked able to be understood, but it didn't look like a toy, if that makes sense. It looked,
Right. Right.
it looked like an actual, a performer or an actor on a screen. So
Yeah. I think that's
that
also like exactly everything you're talking about. I think that's what I find so much like I get so much joy out of with this hobby is like how do you take a figure that may look amazing, like a Hot Toys figure or, Mezco stuff or really anything, Black Series, take something that already looks pretty good, but how do you kind of sell this shot or how do you sell this concept?
right,
And doing things like trying to marry a background with foreground elements with the subject in the center and bringing in lights that match the background color. Once you kind of get all these like kind of elements together, you can really sell the visual pretty easy. I mean, because even if you've got something in the foreground, it's going to give you more depth. If it's blurred out, it doesn't really matter. It's just something there, and it makes you feel like you're actually within this scene. And then it also helps with scaling too, of course.
right.
But yeah, that's so much fun. And for me, every time I set something up in my head, I'm like, okay, I think this will look pretty cool. but you don't really know until you get behind your, the camera, like if you're looking at your display or looking through the lens or even getting it on your computer to edit. You don't really know how that's going to look until you see the shot. And that's what's super exciting. Even if you set it up, you know where everything is, you know what elements are being used. It still feels kind of like this surprise when you actually get that final shot that you can kind of work with. So it's fun. It's addicting, man, on
It
so many
is.
levels.
It is so addicting. Do you feel like you have improved your process and your workflow since you first started out? Do you feel like that time frame that you have, I know both of us have time constraints on,
Right.
shooting. Do you feel like your workflow has kind of changed the way you approach toy photography? Are you more methodical? How do you feel like that's changed?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think there's a lot of things that have kind of ebbed and flowed from the beginning. Really dialing in kind of the diorama technique, and then from there, like at the beginning, it was just like mostly using maybe a floor and then the diorama image on the screen and then the figures. But then I kind of started pushing that a little bit more, maybe using more kind of physical props just to kind of fill out the scene. And then, a while after that, maybe it was more about, hey, a lot of these guys are using physical dioramas and they just look really good. In that being more the focus with the subject, maybe still using the screen for a sky or just to cast some color.
Right.
And then it's like, well, I really want to do an all, no screens. I want to try what can I get with just full diorama pieces, or it's fun to kind of just kind of play around with different techniques. I'd love to kind of do more, kind of outdoor explosion type stuff. That'd be fun, but it's just a little bit more difficult to actually make that happen. But
Yeah.
it's so much
And
fun to
those
just kind of
guys
play
that
with
do
different
that,
things.
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's just so much fun to play with different techniques, and again being inspired by all the amazing guys who are doing other things that I'm not focusing on.
Yes,
It's incredible.
it is. And, with the people that are able to go out and do the outdoor photography and, versus the people who are not able to do that,
Yeah.
it's a different workflow. Like people that are able
Oh
to
yeah.
have that, environment where they can manipulate every single and setting and uh every background, like you were saying,
Yeah.
you're able to control the end product so much easier versus going out in the elements, and you really have to have a feel of
Mhm.
how the day is going to go, when the light's going to be there. And
Yeah.
I feel like, not saying that one is better than the other because they're two entirely different types of shooting.
Sure.
But I feel like when you're able to go out, outside in the elements, that it's almost like painting, like painting a portrait, but you have no idea where it's going to go. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
have you really have an idea. You want to feel, you have an emotion that you want, but you really don't know because there's so many variables when you're out in the elements, and
Yeah.
versus shooting indoors and having those shots, you're able to,
You're kind of
manipulate and
creating it.
control exactly. And people that are able to do the outdoors, and able to control it and master it, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It
It
is
truly
amazing.
is. It's a different level for sure. I've tried it many times, and I don't feel like I've succeeded so far, but I definitely enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I feel the same way sometimes, honestly. So those guys, props to everybody who goes outside and shoots. You
Yes.
you're incredible and inspiring. So keep that up.
Incredibly inspiring for sure, for sure. So, do you approach toy photography for the enjoyment aspect of the process, or do you do it more for the posting? Because I know a lot of people
Oh.
enjoy the process of toy photography more than they enjoy like the community aspect, and then some people love the community aspect more. What do you feel like you enjoy more?
The nice thing is that I actually enjoy both sides of it.
Oh,
That doesn't
wow.
really answer your question, but no, the process to me is exciting. Again, being more kind of creative minded, I love to. I mean, just the whole process and trying to figure out how do you get this shot. Trying new, like I said, trips, tricks and techniques,
Right.
or even just new tools. So, if you're using like practical like fog or fog in a can or things like that.
Sure.
Seeing how that changes what you can produce. I love that side of thing. I love the creative, like being the creator and bringing it all together and seeing what you come up with. But I would say what keeps me in toy photography is the community, not necessarily posting the final shot and getting, comments and likes and all that stuff. But it's this type of thing where you and we met over our love for toys, right? And
Right.
we're talking about it. And it's something that I think everybody needs, something that they're passionate about, that it's not about making money. It's not about getting notoriety. It's about something that you just love to do. And knowing that there's another, there are a ton of people who come from different walks of life that do this. And we have this really great community who loves to share and who loves to be inspired by one another, lift each other up. That's what keeps me in it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, if you're only going off of what your return on investment is, like if you want to put it that way,
Sure.
there's some shots where I'm like, hey, this is a great shot. And it gets like 230 likes.
Right.
And some other ones get over 1,000 or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter the numbers. But if you're just basically kind of going off those metrics, then at a certain point, you're going to be like, okay, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And the reason for me is the community and the relationships. So,
I love that. I
yeah.
love that. Having that burnout kind of happen whenever you're trying to just gain momentum and likes or followers,
Yeah.
it's exhausting, and
Yeah.
it's a never-ending goal. You know what I mean? Like, is
Oh, yeah.
10,000 gonna be enough? 20,000, 30,000? When does it end? And at the end of the day, like you said, the thing that's the most enjoyable aspect for me too is being able to, connect with people like you, like-minded
Right.
people who enjoy the hobby and who enjoy creating content that's going to inspire and uplift and be able
Hmm.
to, you know, I love what Jesse said on the previous podcast. He does a picture and it helps somebody through their day and it just gives them a
Yeah.
little boost,
Oh, man.
and that to me is worth it. The investment that I made, the figure that I purchased, the diorama I made by hand or whatever it
Yeah.
was, that to me was worth, you know, that investment. And so that's amazing, man. I love
Yeah,
this
definitely.
community. People that don't really understand the toy community, maybe that are looking out from the outside in, man, I just encourage you just to get involved in the people that are out there putting out great content. They're so accessible.
Yeah.
If you want to be able to learn, just send us a message and we'll help you, man. Just be approachable. Of
Hmm.
course, be respectful.
Yeah.
You don't want to foster a community that's disrespectful. That's something I definitely don't want to have, especially on, our personal, pages that we like to do. Like we want to be
100%.
respected and we will show you respect as well. So,
Hmm. Yeah. And that's another thing I would say just in general. The community is great at sharing, at interaction, inspiring, uplifting. But also, yeah, you're right. I think everyone recognizes the amount of effort that we put into our own work. And so even if somebody's inspired, like, oh wow, that shot that you did, it was great. I want to try that too. And a lot of times people will attempt it and say, hey, I was inspired by so and so. You
yeah.
need to go check out their work. And so over and over again, I'm seeing more of that type of attitude versus, okay, I'm learning this new thing. I learned what looks best is snow. Like what is it flour or baking soda? I figured this trick out, this technique, and I'm not going to share it with anybody. Like usually it's the complete
Right.
opposite. Like, hey guys, check this out. This is what it looks like with flour. This is what it looks like with baking soda. Whatever it is. People are so willing to just engage. And like you said, usually if somebody shoots me a DM and I see it, like I'll reply and say, hey, thanks for reaching out. Even if it's just asking a simple question or whatever it might be. So again, obviously you give people respect, then that's how you'll get respect too. So, but
Exactly.
love the
Exactly.
community. Love the community.
Me too, man. So I'm curious, how long does it take? We kind of talked about this earlier about your process. How long does it really take on the timeline that you have a shot in your mind till you get the shot, ready,
Sure.
you get the process going, and then it's able to be posted? Like, how long does it take you? Because I know it takes me, you know, let's just say I have an idea. I'm always got ideas, right? So we're
Right.
all, as toy photographers, we always have ideas and shots that are kind of like maybe a bucket shot or a shot that we've been wanting to do.
Right.
But whenever I set up, and from that timeline, it normally takes me about 10 hours from being able to shoot and edit and then post. How long
Yeah.
does that take for you to do? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's fun because I've kind of experimented with it a little bit. Obviously, the more you do a certain technique, the more efficient you become. Or if you're able to, keep things set up overnight or for a few days, like if
Sure.
you're shooting in a room or something, and you can just leave all the lights up. That makes the process a little bit more, more efficient, I guess. But honestly, so and I'm sure most people are like this too. I mean, I'm also a collector. I love just having the toys and being able to have them in my office. Like as I'm working, I usually have like a few figures that are on my desk in front of my in front of between me and my
Nice.
computer monitor. And it might be a few figures that I plan to shoot next. And they're just kind of there. And I might, if I'm waiting on some client feedback or just need to take a little break, take a figure, maybe pose it, just see what I can do with the figure. And, that kind of helps me before I actually get to setting up the shot, helps me kind of visualize, okay, oh, this, maybe get Spider-Man in a certain pose and see what angle works best. Like what's the best silhouette if he's, all crouched up and he's got his arms out and his one leg is forward and one's kind of bent back behind him. Like what angle provides the best silhouette? So
Nice.
I can kind of do that while I'm in a sense like during the day, like while I'm working, more or less. Get it? Um, and so I usually will have a figure there that helps me kind of just while I'm coming up with the idea, help me feel like once I step into the room when I'm going to start shooting, I've got a couple of options. From there, setting up, depending on what I need to do, it can take maybe 30 minutes to an hour just to kind of get everything right and then take a few test shots, see how things are looking, and then maybe, do some adjustments. And then after that, I'll probably spend 2 hours, if maybe, maybe more, maybe less depending. But when I set up, I like to get more than like one or two shots. I
Right.
want to use that setup again. I like efficiency. I like to get as much out of it as possible. So maybe even use the same setup with like the Cantina or the Smugglers Retreat, but shoot four different figures that work with it with a similar setup or maybe different angle, maybe change the color of the light so it doesn't feel like the exact same thing. So I, kind of just, it depends, but I do this all at night after my family's kind of gone to bed. So I've got a little time where I can just focus. Nobody needs me. I don't have to, I don't do it in the morning where I only have like 30 minutes before I have to take kids to school. So I've
Gotcha.
got time and it's really up to me, like how late I want to stay up to do it and then just deal with it in
Right.
the morning. Um, so do that, get the shots. And then maybe it's the next day, I'll pull all the shots off the camera and put it on my computer. I use Photoshop to do the editing, the raw editing and adding effects and all that stuff. It's just what I've done for years. So it makes the most sense. And I'm fast at doing that. And then I might spend maybe for each one, maybe 30 minutes just to touch up. Most of the time, I'm sure all of you guys can relate. There's always tends to be like dust or little fibers or things like that that you don't see until you actually blow up the shot on your screen. You're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Or like a reflection of like the hyper real Darth Vader that I just shot, reflections of the ceiling fan in his helmet. Like stupid things
Oh,
like that. You don't notice until you actually get it up and you're working on kind of the editing side. So, spend anywhere between like 30 minutes to maybe an hour on some of the individual shots. But then I've got, five, six shots from that session, the shooting session, that I can kind of post over time or save a few and post a few weeks afterwards. But again, just try to be efficient with the time that you're spending because we spend a lot of time doing this. So,
that's true. And I've noticed that you kind of have moved away from your three post theme shots and you've kind of gone more of a individual shot per shot. And when I say
mhm.
that, I mean your Instagram layout. So the way that
Right,
when
right.
you look at your feed, you used to do the three shot themed. And is that something that you kind of just over time moved over uh, just because of necessity, or what
Sure.
was the reasoning for that?
Well, it's funny. I still, in my mind, I'm always thinking, okay, I still want to have my rows nice and tidy. And actually, like the Vader and some of the Power Ranger stuff I shot recently, I did 3 of each of those.
Okay.
But sometimes what I'll do is, so if you kind of go back through, once I've completed a row, I'll have like maybe a grouping where it's like 2 on a row and then 1 kind of straggler, and then right above that there will be 2 more from maybe that session. So there's like a grouping of 4 and then 2 that are stacked on each other that might go together. Or it might be 1 row that's like completely just random, but then I start back up with maybe a full row. Or, it will change. I'm always using that mindset. But I was getting to the point when I was like, man, okay, I take a shot. I've got to get 3 shots every time I shoot, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just kind of silly. I'm like, I don't need to do this. And once people see 1 shot from the setup, if you're showing the same thing, if it's just a little bit different, it's not
Right.
as interesting. So unless they're like really dynamic and maybe a little bit different, maybe the same figure, maybe I'll just do like 1, or now that you can do multiple images in 1 post, you couldn't do that before. Then you can, have like 5 images from the session just in 1 post. So,
Yes.
you don't want
Yes.
to spam everybody. That can get annoying when it's just the same thing over and over again. So,
That's true. And I'm glad that you said that because I have attempted to do this 3-shot theme Instagram groupings before, and
yeah,
it is exhausting because
yeah, right.
you do have that one, perfect shot that you had in mind, and then you kind of have to frame that perfect shot with 2 other side
Yeah,
shots, and it does get repetitive, especially when you're, looking through someone's feed and you're like, you kind of know what's the filler shots and what's the shots that are
right.
like,
The B side,
expert.
C side. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I think for me, I've kind of moved away from that too, just being
Hmm.
able to focus on. I love what Trevor Williams always talks about is that quality over quantity.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And he is a master of that phrase.
Sure
Like
is.
he will only post the quality. He doesn't just post a post, and something that I
Uh-huh.
kind of look up to him as a uh, forerunner in that aspect. And growing as artists, that's something that we kind of have to balance and juggle. Is like, I want to post because I want to put forth my creativity, but at the same time I want to put out what's something that's going to be enjoyable and something that's my best,
Right.
because you don't want to just throw something out there that's just filler.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
So, I mean, I'm always, just because of the type of personality I am, I'm always curating everything I post and thinking ahead of what's going to be next or what my row will look like. So people still can see that I feel like s- there's some intentionality behind when I post versus just like, here's a shot, post, here's a shot, here's one.
right.
I still am curating in a sense, but trying not to be as obvious with it. So,
And going back to the mantra of the Toy Photographers podcast, that we are storytellers, that's something that you kind of emulate so well, is that you're always telling a story in your shots. It's not you know, just shots that you throw up there. You have some sort of element of storytelling that you're doing, and there's a lot of emotion. I think that's why so many people are able to connect and to enjoy your content so much. And that's one reason I do, is just the storytelling aspect, and the imagination just kind of is able to run with your shots. When you post, like right now, I'm looking at a Darth Maul shot that's a portrait. Even though
oh
there's
yeah,
not a lot of context,
right.
the emotion that's kind of emitted from that shot, I'm thinking, oh, what is he looking at? What is going on? What is he thinking? And the storytelling aspect is what I enjoy so much of it. So that's something that
Yeah.
I really appreciate from your content.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's what I respond to as well. Um, there are times when I'm just posting a figure because I think, hey, if this was like a product shot, how would that appear? You're not
Sure.
really focusing on, okay, what is this character thinking? So there are those that are just nice to kind of like, I just want to take a picture of this photo or take a picture of this character
Right.
and set that up. And I love that. But also, that can get kind of dull for me, and so I like being able to it takes more time, but I like being able to think more conceptually of like, okay, what would be funny to put this character, like what situation would be funny, or interesting, or how do you bring a couple characters from different universes together. And that ultimately, I think, one, people respond better to. There's so many people in the community taking amazing, amazing shots. And they may just be like, hey, here's a figure, beautiful scenery, action pose, action shot, whatever. And it looks amazing. But I think it's really the stuff that stands out are the things that have a little bit of thought and concept behind it.
Right.
Because it's just different from what, um, what a lot of people maybe tend to lean towards. But again, not taking away from their craft at all. But I'm just drawn more towards, like you said, kind of the storytelling or the thought behind what the scene is, I suppose.
And, it's proven that emotion, is kind of the key to long-term memory. So if you have an emotion tied to a shot, you're going to
Oh
remember
yeah,
that shot. And I love when you're able to either get a laugh or maybe
yeah,
even a contemplative shot where you're thinking, what's going on here? And that's to me the most compelling, content is when you're. Yeah, I'm not the best personally at the funny shots. I tend to lean more dramatic, serious,
oh sure, sure,
hero pose or, Batman standing over something and brooding or
right,
you know what I
right,
mean? But the people that do the funny shots, like you've been doing a lot of great content with that hyper real Darth Vader, which is so
oh
funny
thanks,
with
man.
the little things that you included in those shots. Do you feel like there's some people out there you want to give a shout out to that you love that are the more humorous Instagram accounts?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's a bunch of guys that I kind of run with quite a bit. Um, so every day I'm talking with Spencer Witt, Switpix, Isaiah Takahashi,
Yeah.
uh, Bluxers. I joke. I sometimes will call him Black seriously, but yeah,
Oh, that's
Zay.
good.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see, Richie, so Nose Rain,
Yep.
and Jax, Plastic Action. I mean, everybody. If you're in the community, you're familiar with those guys. I talk with them regularly, like probably every single day. Those guys, each one of them, they inspire me. And again, I think so much it's not really even like one person or three people. If you ask me to tell you what are the top three people that inspire you or whatever, that I stress out even thinking about that because there's so many people who I greatly admire and greatly respect who are doing such great work. And even people who are building their own dioramas and focusing more on that, people who are building little props. um, Dwayne shoots toys recently. He's been doing he's always been doing really elaborate setups
Oh
and
yeah.
printing out wallpapers and posters and all these, making these little props that are just, they're gorgeous. Like, again, that's inspiring to see. There's people who are doing Lego toy photography that are just insane, the amount of time it takes to build like a Lego diorama
I
and
know.
then light it and that type of stuff. Or like I said, even the practical, going outside and figuring out how to shoot with fireworks, um, or indoors with dioramas. So there's so many guys doing it. And I think their work, all it speaks for itself. So the ones that are humorous, the ones that take it more seriously, the more that are indoor versus outdoor. There's so many great talented folks that I get to talk to and kind of interact
Awesome.
with. So and inspired by. So
Nice. I tend to, I guess, I don't put people in boxes. I wasn't meaning that at
oh,
all.
sure,
But
sure, sure.
what I meant was just really whenever I think of people that are, humorous, I think of like the Hot Kenobis or like
Yeah, yeah,
I
those are
think
great.
of like you said, you mentioned Plastic Action. He's got some
Yeah,
great shots that always crack me up with his plastic ballers
yeah,
shots that he does. And you know, when you branch out and start doing different theme shots, it doesn't really put you in a box because toy photography is limitless. There's this
yeah,
endless amount
definitely.
of creativity that you can put into it. And for me personally, I I sort of gravitate towards the more humorous ones because sometimes,
Hmm.
you may be having a tough day. You may be having, something serious happen in your life, and seeing a shot that's going to crack you up is take you away for a second from reality, and, just lighten your mood a little bit. And then you're able
Yeah.
to get back into the day.
Yeah, that
But
is
that's
nice.
something I enjoy. So I'm curious, just kind of changing topics here
Sure.
shortly. Um, we had mentioned in a previous conversation between you and I, our love of Star Wars, the Black Series, that line
Yeah.
of figures. Do you consider that to be your favorite line of figures to shoot, or do you have another favorite line of action figures? And you know, what is the reasoning behind that? I'm curious.
Sure. I mean, I would have to say the Black Series line has been my favorite. It kind of got me into it. Star Wars is my favorite IP. And there's so much content that you can shoot around in the Star Wars universe. So I've got a lot of those figures. I mean, I've got almost all of them. I'm kind of slowing down a little bit, but those are just fun to shoot at the price point. 20 bucks a pop. Sometimes you get them cheaper than that. If you find good deals, it makes it easy to kind of expand your collection without like completely breaking the bank. I wouldn't
Yes.
be able to shoot just like strictly Hot Toys or 1/6 scale, like some of these amazing other guys.
Props
Um,
to those that can.
right, right. Um, yeah, I'm blown away. So the 6-inch line, the Black Series, I've got the most of that. So as a collector, those are fun to shoot. But over the years, just being in the community and seeing other people, what they love. I mean, I know you love all the Mezco stuff. Like that's the 112. You love that, and so seeing guys like you shoot that stuff, it's inspiring. Because of being in the community, I was aware of it. I've got I've got three of them. So I've got the Spider-Man, Homecoming Spider-Man, the Wolverine, the brown and yellow, and then the Gomez.
Oh,
And
nice.
they are incredible. Obviously, higher price point, but they are incredible figures. So
They are.
as much as I love just like the Black Series stuff and Marvel Legends, there's so many lines that are just they're inspiring. And again, I I don't like doing just one thing. And so if I'm in, just shooting one line of toys, I get bored with that easily. So kind of branching out, doing other things outside of Star Wars. I mean, I love Ninja Turtles growing up, and the 1990 NECA stuff that they put out, those figures are incredible. Um, they're just like the perfect sculpts and recreations of the figures, and I don't shoot them much, but I have them, and I love them because of what they kind of do for me in my nostalgia and what I remember. But again, like the Mezco stuff is so like highly detailed, I should say, that
Yes,
they just look amazing in shots.
they do.
So I like variety. Um, but if you were gonna say like what's the thing I collect most, it would be definitely Star Wars Black Series stuff.
Gotcha. So you're more of a 112 scale kind of guy versus the 1/6. I know you have a few Hot Toys
Yeah, yeah, I
figures.
love them.
So do you prefer to shoot the 112 versus 1/6?
I would say yes, because a lot of it kind of logistically with having scaling up, sometimes that could be more challenging than having more like diorama set pieces that are to 112. Even if you need something like a sofa or whatever it might be, like there's like 112 like scale dollhouse accessories you could buy, or you could go to the hobby store and grab things. So sometimes it's easier to get that type of stuff. Um, and I'd say it's kind of the primary line that I collect. One for price, but also kind of availability of other props and things. Um, and also it's just I feel like you can either go really tight and get some nice like medium or tight close up shots of the figure at that scale, or you can go really wide and see more of the scene. When you go up to like 1/6, I feel like you're kind of in the maybe a little bit tighter, but you're able to see more details and they look so good. So, but yeah, 112 is probably my go-to for sure.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Me too, man. I love the 112 scale, and I've kind of gone back and forth, and I tend to have a rabbit trail mindset whenever I'm looking at figures or pre-orders, and I'll
Yeah.
get excited about a certain line, and then I'll remember, oh yeah, there's this coming out too. And it's, as a collector, it's impossible to be able to keep up with every single line and
I know.
every single series of characters. And I think that's one of the more enjoyable aspects of the toy photography community, is being able to see other people pick up figures that maybe you were interested in, but you just didn't pick up because of budget constraints or whatever it may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And then you see them doing those shots that you had in mind. I've seen that happen
Yeah,
many
exactly.
times where I was like, oh, I wanted to do that shot. I'm glad they did it. And it's
Yeah.
not like I'm jealous at all. I'm actually happy that they made the shot that I wanted to make. And so I don't have to, in my mind, go out and purchase the figure because someone did it right.
Exactly.
So it's just funny to look at it from that aspect and enjoy toy photography as a community and as a
Uh-huh.
creative collaboration.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and we will get right back to the Toy Photographers Podcast. Stay right there. Welcome back to the Toy Photographers Podcast. This is the second part of the Jason Young interview. Get your cup of coffee ready because this is going to be an invigorating interview, my friends.
It will be.
Jason Young, you're back.
Yes, I am. And actually, we're going to flip it around a little bit. So, all right, everybody, welcome back to the Toy Photographers Podcast. We're with Dakota Spicer. Welcome.
Yo, yo, yo. What's up?
Oh, much. Actually, I was interested. For some people, they know that you're Dagobah Customs. And so, something we have been able to work on together, which has been a blast, is a little project you've been working on for the last few months, right?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is that we collaborated on together?
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to go back to the very beginning.
Okay.
So, man, I was working at a factory a couple years ago and was just kind of, I saw this post of my friend, and she's like an inspirational person, and was like, if you want to like move on with your life, like you really just need to dream yourself out of the old
Mm,
season
mm.
and into the new. I know that's super spiritual. Maybe people who aren't like into spirituality, whatever. I'm just like, just ignore this segment. But I was like, okay, how do I do that? Practically speaking, how do I dream myself out of my old season and into a new season? So I was like, okay, I love toy photography. I love action figures. I love dioramas. I've always wanted to make dioramas, and I just grew up in a very creative household, always creating, always making things by hand. And I love Star Wars too. So I just kind of started just daydreaming while I was working at this factory. And
Yeah.
I was like, what could I make? Maybe it'd be cool to make a Star Wars, diorama that people could, you know, not only recreate certain scenes, but use as, a multifaceted experience to be able to, you know, create scenes like with the Black Series figures or figure arts. And
Yeah, and at this real quick, at this point, you've already kind of been a part of like the community. So you'd seen
yes,
people doing toy
yes,
photography and probably building dioramas as well, right?
I had.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, at the time, I was not as involved in the toy photography aspect. I was more in the creative aspect of creating things. And
Right.
so it kind of, it goes back and forth in that process. And so what I did is I had reached out to you, and I think I reached out to a couple other people. I've just kind of picking their brains about, how do I do this? If I want to do this, what do I do? And you had hooked me up with Figureworks, and he, let me
Hmm.
just say, is the most incredible dude,
I
hands
love
down.
it. Yeah,
Really is.
he's
He's
awesome.
such an incredible guy. He's so humble, so approachable. And I just reached out to him. I was like, dude, I have this idea. I want to make a diorama that's based off of, the cantina scene in A New Hope. And he was like, okay, well, this is what you have to do. And he just started laying out all the framework. And, you know,
Hmm.
long story short, we basically started brainstorming, and we had a product that we could be able to create. And so he gave me the scene specific dimensions for the scene, and I was so grateful because he had all of this knowledge, and I was able to just take that knowledge and be able to create. And, I went through a couple of different processes in creating it. There's different versions that we made along the
Right.
way. And we came up with this modular version of the Smugglers Retreat. Man, it was so much fun to be able to do that process. And now, so moving into the process of actually pre-orders and everything,
Sure.
that was a learning process. That was an
Oh yeah, I imagine.
extremely fun, but also taxing learning process because I had to just be glued to my phone for every DM and every single, opportunity to respond to potential customers. And, I was learning. I was, learning the
Yeah.
process of how to be able to be an independent diorama maker. And
Yeah, I was
so,
gonna say, if I may, I would say the other thing about that is that when you started and we started, you sent one to me, we started, shooting it along with a couple other guys, and really it kind of opened our minds up with it being modular and kind of creating these different scenes, taking those shots, giving them back to you, and it helped you have things to actually put forth in front of the community and say, "Hey, building this together, kind of collaborative, with all of us," and
yes,
people could see what they could do with it. And I think maybe part of it was like maybe the presentation and everything you created was at such a high quality. I'm not saying like toy photography, but just the piece that you created such a high quality that people responded so well to that I think, I mean, it sounded like you got quite a few, people who actually purchased and who were just really excited. You got reposted several places. And so, I mean, you
yes.
just, from the beginning, you were making a solid product and doing that, and it's, I think in, the collaborative way, that was pretty cool to see and be, honestly be a part of.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to work with you guys and the C3B Bros and being
Oh,
able
likewise.
to send you guys those prototypes, and you guys gave me some great feedback, and I was able to adjust. And like some of the things that you had mentioned, like for instance, the inside wall I had left unfinished on your guys'
Yeah.
dioramas. And so you're like, hey, it'd be a lot better if you went back in and just kind of made the whole thing, have that texture and that feel. So that way you could have more opportunity for different shots. And so that was a great feedback, learning from my mistakes, learning from little things. And I make all these by hand. I don't have any instruments like that are
Right.
machined. Everything's by hand. So it's a
Unique, one of a kind.
exactly. Each one is unique. Each one is painstakingly created and crafted for each customer. And so
Yeah.
going to do the process of the pre-orders, I didn't realize when I took on this project how I was going to really do it, and that's kind of I wouldn't necessarily call it a method, but it's kind of my way with all of the things that I do. I just jump in and I figure it out along the way. You don't have to really know
Yeah.
everything to know to be able to do something. And, people are willing to work with you when they know that you're learning and you're
Absolutely.
approachable. And so
Absolutely.
my customers, I'm still crafting orders and still shipping out orders. It originally I wanted to finish the entire project by summer, but it's kind
Yeah.
of I've had some family issues come up and
Right.
it's pushed back a lot of orders. And being so involved in my family, and my wife's mother actually got cervical cancer, and that really, you know, kind of basically halted a lot of production because she
Oh,
moved in
yeah.
with us and we were, taking care of her. And so,
Mhm.
not to get too heavy, but just
Sure,
that
sure.
process alone.
It's
So
life,
like
man.
learning,
Yeah.
it is, and learning how to manage and juggle all of the orders alongside of doing all my other things that I'm doing. It's
Right.
definitely been a process, but I'm so glad that I never gave up and I never threw in the towel because at some points it really was stressful because
Yeah.
I hold myself to a very high standard. And I
Mhm.
think it comes from my upbringing and my family. And I have, my grandfather was in sports journalism for 20 years, and he's just a master at speaking and someone that's very influential in his craft. And I hold myself to a very high standard because of his influence in my life and all these other aspects of my history, my family history.
Sure.
So whenever I don't feel like I'm, you know, performing and creating at my best, I get very stressed. So
Oh, sure.
it's
Yeah.
been a learning process. It's been there's For instance, like even the little metal bars that go behind Han Solo's head when he's sitting on that scene.
Yeah, yeah.
I had no idea how I was going to do that. Whenever I put the actual pre-order process up, and I didn't actually have that, because I remember I had done a different version of it. What I had done was using wooden dowel
Right,
rods,
right.
and those were, they
It
were
worked.
decent. They
Yeah, it
worked.
worked. But
They worked okay.
the upgrade, what you figured out, like all those little details that you added, and then some of the 3D printed pieces that you worked with Figureworks on, like it just, again, like you're talking about, you continue to push yourself and elevate your craft, listen to feedback, and ultimately all that does, just kind of like with the community, ultimately we're building each other up, and you can see the difference from where you started and where you are now. And I imagine where your head's going for the next thing. I can see that you're just always paying attention to those details and wanting to just improve things. And so that's another reason why I think, even though all these things, life happens to all of us,
It
you've
does.
always been really good at communicating with your obviously the clients, but also the community too. Like, hey, I'm working on this stuff. Kind of got behind on some things. Just telling people like, hey, I got to put this off for a little bit. And if you're just communicating and letting people know and being cool about stuff, you get a lot of grace back. And I know that's probably stressful for you as well, too, feeling like, oh no, I've got to tell everybody that I've got to delay it by a little bit, a little bit. But I think we all understand that life is the first thing we got to do, and then we do this kind of for fun and enjoyment. But I've always appreciated about you is that you genuinely care about people. You care about providing a great product and great service, and yeah, I think that's another reason why you are also a great pillar of this community as well.
And thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate that. It doesn't always feel that way. And our minds can sometimes be, the
Oh
worst
yeah,
worst of critics. And so I appreciate you saying those things. It's
yeah, of course.
something that I love to do, and when I'm doing it, when I'm creating those dioramas, I get such joy, and I know that when that person gets that diorama and they, are able to create, or maybe, some of the people that have gotten these dioramas just strictly use it for display, and that's great
Oh yeah,
too.
that's true. Yeah.
And it's something that I just have a deep appreciation for all of my customers, and I want to make sure that they feel taken care of, and they're appreciated. And anybody that wants to get anything personally designed and made by me or Figureworks, we take it seriously. We really
Yeah,
do. It's an
it,
investment.
it shows.
It's an investment, and it's not something that we want to, just put out product that's not enjoyable, because I want to enjoy it. If I'm enjoying it, then I feel like maybe someone else will enjoy it. So
Definitely, definitely. Well, it like I said, is so fun to work with you, and I know there's some other things that you're working on, I think. So
yeah,
anything that we're able to kind of collaborate on in the future is always just a blast. So I'm excited. I'm definitely a proponent for you and everything you're doing for the community. So
thank you, man. Thank you.
yeah.
I will give a little teaser. If you're a fan of
Oh,
Han, if you're a fan of Han Solo and you like the Star Wars the Black Series stuff, look out next year, pending everything gets finished with
sure.
the Smugglers Retreats. I want to open up a pre-order, hopefully in February, and it's going to be Return of the Jedi theme. So I'm not going to give any more
Okay.
specificities.
I
It's
like
going to
that
be
tease.
something,
Yeah.
yeah, Return of the Jedi, Han Solo. So you might understand what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay.
But and then I'm
We'll just
also
put
going to
that one
be,
on ice for a little bit.
yes, we'll put that one on ice. And I also I want to do a Batman themed diorama,
Yeah.
like a big project, and it's going to be limited. So I'm when I started out the Smuggler's Retreat, I just kind of opened up, infinite amount of pre-orders. I
Sure.
got 25 orders of the Smuggler's Retreat, so I was very blessed to have those
Amazing.
many orders. But I didn't realize, like I said, the amount of time it would take to do those.
Sure.
So I'm going to do a limited run of both the next two pre-orders. So it'll probably be anywhere between 10 and 20
That's
uh,
awesome.
of
So
each
you'll keep
diorama.
us posted probably here, Toy Photographers Podcast, Toy Photocast, but then also like Days Customs. You'll make
Yes.
sure and keep us updated, right?
I will keep everyone updated. There will be plenty of time to pre-order. I will probably have a 2-month window to pre-order, so that way
Awesome.
everybody can get the funds necessary to be able to place a pre-order.
Nice. Can't wait to see it. It's going to be amazing. I can already tell. So,
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm
yeah.
excited. It's going to be fun. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the mic back around. So now we are going to finish our incredible interview with Mr. Jason Young
Hey,
as
how's
a
it
toy
going? Good to be
photographers
back.
podcast. Hey, it's good to have you back.
I love it.
So I have a question for you, sir.
Sure.
I asked The Amazing this, and that episode has yet to be released, but I asked him
Okay.
this, and I wanted to ask you this as well because I'm
Sure.
curious. Do you see yourself as an influencer, and how
Oh,
does it really affect you, being an artist with that big a following on Instagram? Do you see yourself as that? Is that something that you're constantly aware of?
if we're talking about influencing, I mean, I guess there's different ways you could approach that.
True.
Um, strictly speaking, I mean, I think there have been a few times when people will send me DMs and say, "What do you think about that?" Like the hyperreal Vader, and I might talk to them, or they might send me. I had a couple people who sent me messages that, "Okay, I was on the fence, but now that you did the unboxing video, you took some photos, and I can actually see with my eyes how things could be if it's with them, they can kind of envision it. You push me over, and I'm definitely going to buy that. So there have been a few times when I know specifically people have said, okay, if you love that figure, if you love that die or whatever it is, then I trust you and I'm going to do it. Or hey, tell me about those lights that you got that you've used for the last setup, or grass mats or whatever. People might reach out and I can say, oh, here, I got them here. Then a couple minutes later, all right, I just purchased them. So from like a strictly like influencer doing what you're supposed to do to get people to buy product, maybe it's happened a few times, but I do the same thing with anybody who has something that's interesting, and I can say, oh man, that would make my process better or make my shots better. So I think in
Nice.
a sense, everybody's kind of an influencer. It's always hard because obviously I've had a good relationship with Hasbro and some other companies, and like your Toy Link and Towering Toys, and some other people that I've been working with over the years that it just had good relationships with.
Nice.
And so from an outside perspective, people might say, oh, well, he's working with these companies and getting product to shoot and all that stuff. And I mean, yeah, that's cool. I don't know if that makes people say like, oh, hey, he's a real influencer. He's a social media influencer. My wife
Yeah.
actually will kid me about that, and
Oh,
say,
was she?
yeah, like yeah, hey, this is my husband. He's a social media influencer. I'm
Aw.
like, stop,
She's
stop.
proud
It
of
just
you.
sounds so funny. She
Yeah.
is, and I love her. But yeah, I mean, maybe from that extent. But again, I just love. I'll kind of go back to it. I just love being able to share techniques I'm using, products I'm using, and also be honest. So even there's some stuff that I might get, I'm like, I don't really, doesn't really do much for me, or this thing broke immediately out of the box. I'll be honest with people. So who knows?
It's interesting that you look at it that way because, there's so many people that do look at people like yourself and other people whenever they get the products in from Hasbro or from
Right.
whomever, they do really take your opinion seriously because you're able to get those hands-on reviews. And I know, like I had mentioned, The Amazing earlier, people really take seriously his thoughts on a
Oh
figure.
yeah. His
And
reviews are awesome.
oh
I love it.
man, they're so good. And it's so funny about him is, he only reviews the things that he really enjoys. And that's
Hmm.
something that you can kind of, tell whenever he's doing a review. And he focuses on the good, more than the things that he doesn't enjoy. And
Sure.
I guess when I say influencer, I don't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that in a negative connotation because a lot of people, I guess, see being an influencer as someone that just kind of pushes their opinion on everybody. And that's not what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
When I say an influencer, I mean someone that is a positive force of spreading basically, your thoughts on specific subjects and people taking those. And of course, you're going to make a decision whether or not you want to purchase something on your own or what, or, even from a creative aspect, you are influencing people creatively, through the way that
Sure.
you
Yeah.
toy photography and you're behind the scenes. So from here on out, anybody that's listening to this, when I say influencer, I mean that as a good thing. I don't mean that
Yeah.
as a negative thing. Maybe it's gotten a bad rap. Um,
Yeah,
and
it's possible. I mean, but yes, I would like to think I love people. I love talking. No, I love engaging with people. And so I think just with where we are in society, it's so easy to jump on and hide behind social media and really say what you want and be ugly. And man, we need to not do that. And I think that's what's so enticing about this community is that I would say we're more positive than we are negative. I hope that when people reach out and they send me messages and have conversations with people, I hope people get that. I don't ever want to come across as, anything other than, hey, I'm just like you. It doesn't
exactly.
matter. Like, there's always going to be people who have a bigger following or more likes and more, more relationships or whatever it is. Like, it doesn't really matter. I just hope people just recognize that I'm just part of the community as everybody else is. So,
Exactly. And there's no like Instagram royalty out there. I mean, of course,
right.
people like to consider followers as something to base a specific type of following. What I'm trying to
Exactly.
say is it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And
Yeah.
people in this community, I've mentioned this before on a previous podcast, followings they happen, as you progress, as your content gets
Hmm.
better and more refined. Of course, that just happens. It's just a part of something you can't control, on Instagram, especially with today's algorithm and the way that it's
Yeah.
regulated and, basically it's a money pit. If you want to spend lots of money, you could get tons of followers,
Exactly.
but
It's not worth stressing about all that
no,
stuff anyway.
no,
So,
it's not
yeah.
worth stressing at all. And I'm just glad that you do see yourself as someone that, is able to make positive, reinforcing opinions and being able to really encourage and craft a community that's going to be potentially could last for a very long time. I hope it does,
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Do you have any wins? Like when I say wins, do you have any like big moments that you look back on
Oh yeah.
your journey as a toy photographer? Do you have any moments that you look back and say, "Wow, I just got to pinch myself real quick. Did that actually happen?"
I would say the biggest one, and obviously because I'm such a Star Wars fan, they pretty much have done for the last few years kind of open submissions for the Star Wars Fan Awards.
Yes.
And so it's funny. I had an idea to basically recreate, instead of just like toy photography, recreate almost like a kid's or like a old retro Kinner TV commercial,
Yeah.
and use the products and kind of feature those. To make a long story short, created like a little 12-second spot, narrated it, and I actually was taking the figures with my hands and moving the characters around in the scene, and kind of intentionally trying to be like kind of tongue in cheek with it. Had my
Right.
boys record some audio for the characters, and really, I took like about a day or two out of my actual work day to do it because I was just so excited about what it could be, and put all my client work aside,
That
good or
is
bad, and created this little piece and ended up submitting it for the fan awards, and I won for the best or a fan. I forgot exactly what it was, but basically won for that category
that's
for
so
the short
cool.
short video. And again, it was interesting because I submitted it and then waited a few months, and then they said, "Hey, you're part of the voting," and then voting went on for a while, and then waited a few more months, and then got a notification like, "Hey, you actually won, but you have to wait
Wow.
a couple months before we actually announce it, and make this little video, and then we'll kind of put it all together." So it's funny because it felt like it was like maybe over the course of like 6 months when I created the video, and then once it was announced. So I kept kind of forgetting that I made it and submitted it and was, part of the kind of the group of winners, and then actually announced that I won. And so every time it was kind of like this little pinch, like, oh my gosh, Star Wars, StarWars.com. Like I'm on
I
the
know.
website. That was pretty wild. And what what I really appreciate about that is that it really is a testament to kind of bringing together what I do full time as Invisible Element, but also my hobby and my love and my passion for toy photography, and then also Star Wars is just kind of an IP, and it all kind of it represented me and the toys, and then bringing my kids into it to help, with family, and it kind of was just like a really great piece that represented who I am, and to be able to win that along with several of my other friends who won awards in their own categories. Like this, just I still kind of look back and it's kind of incredible. So that was probably my biggest win so far since doing this thing.
So for people that want to see that video, how can they access that?
Let's see. So I've got on my website, I believe I've got a link, and I'll go check and make sure it's there. But
Okay.
on my website, workmoreorless.com, I think in the About section, you can go to, there's some links down at the bottom, and from there, you should be able to pull it up. But yeah, I need to also update my site a little bit, but should be able to see it there. Or if you scroll, you want to scroll on my feed on Instagram, you can see it there as well. It's down there, kind of buried a little bit, but
Cool.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's awesome,
Still is
man.
cool.
That is,
And I got
it's
a
so
trophy
cool.
for it too. So
Oh, you got a trophy.
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Wow. So, being massive Star Wars fans that you and I are, it's kind of interesting that Star Wars has, you know, basically celebrated the fans in this way, and it's nothing more than just saying we're appreciative of you, and that's what Star Wars. I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I wasn't jealous at all because I didn't even put a submission in. I was so happy that you got that award, and
Oh,
the other
thanks.
people in the community that won. I think Zay won and Trevor
Yeah,
won, and
Trevor.
you know I can't remember. There was a couple other people. Was there any
Yeah.
more in the toy community that won an award?
Yeah, there were. I think Chespix, TK triple six. Oh gosh. Yeah,
It's all right.
there were a few other people. Yeah,
What
specifically in the toy
wasn't
community.
uh what's his name? Shooting the Galaxy. Didn't he
Yeah.
win one?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember if Matthew
I
did.
think he did too.
Yeah, it's been a while,
It's been a
but
while.
yeah, a lot of people submitted and even were even if they didn't win, they were still part of the voting. And so we had a lot of people who submitted photos and were even just part of the voting round. And so that was a huge win for our community as well, and just bringing that into the light. So
It's so cool, man. So like kind of transitioning from Star Wars celebrating, that sort of fandom, I love to, pick the brains of everybody that comes on the show. Like what do you think us as a community, as a toy photography and toy photographer specific community, what do you think we need to focus on? How can we just be a better community? How can we, practically speaking, just
mhm.
bring this community up to the level that maybe it's not at yet? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I do think we're off to a really great start. I think, like I said, in general, at least the people I'm running around with, I feel like everybody is pretty respectful of one another. I mean, I know that we still need to make sure we're, crediting each other if we're reposting stuff, or if you've seen something and you're inspired by it, just saying, hey, I saw this and I wanted to recreate it, and credit the artist.
Nice.
That's just things that I think we just should do just in general. But I think the biggest thing is just interacting and encouraging and lifting one another up, because it's such a great place to start off in, and I think we can just continue to do more of that and not worry so much about what you're creating, and if it's something that you came up with or you're using a new technique or whatever it is. But just people really respond well to just open dialogue and being able to share. And it's amazing to see. I think it's kind of a testament to the community at large. It's like from when I started, like in 2016 to now, the quality has gone up exponentially. So
Right.
somebody starting off now, I think you guys talked about this in a previous podcast, somebody who's starting off now can already has like a huge understanding, wealth of knowledge from people who have come before. I was kind of
Exactly.
the same way. And so, um, people share. People are not trying to keep, the cards close to their chest, but they're sharing and sharing behind the scenes content and setups, and this is the types of tools that I use, and this is how I go about it. And I think that's just kind of in itself, is that's just something that's really built the community and made it such a great one to be a part of.
It really is. And, when you mentioned the shout outs, I love it whenever somebody on the Dago Customs page will shout out me as an inspiration for
Nice.
their
Yeah.
build, and they'll tag me in it, or they'll comment and they'll say this was inspired by Dago Customs, and that to me is the biggest compliment. I'm like, first of all, I got to give
Absolutely.
credit to George Lucas. I didn't make this stuff. Like, I didn't create this from just out of nothing. I definitely,
Right.
we all come from, you know, people that are interested in fandom,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
to some degree, and you got to give credit where credit is due. It's so true. And just being
Yeah.
able to say you inspired me, that goes
Hmm.
a long ways when you're able to just say, hey, this shot was inspired by so and so. And
Exactly.
when you do that, you then, like you said, you create dialogue. You able
Hmm.
to communicate with one another, and able to, it gives that person those warm fuzzies, and it's
Yeah,
a good
exactly.
feeling. It's a good
It
feeling
is.
to say, oh, wow, like I really inspired that person. And one of my favorite shots that I've done, people have said this before, that the Daredevil shot I had done on my page,
Oh yeah.
people will sit there and say, that's my favorite shot, or just in general. And I'm always blown away, because I really didn't put too much into that shot. It was just a simple shot.
Yeah.
And, um, just knowing that it affects people in that way, it means a lot. It really does.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And that is a great shot, by the way.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I love that show. I really do. I really love the
Good
Daredevil.
stuff.
I hope they come back for another season.
I bet they will once we get the streaming going. Uh,
Hashtag save Daredevil.
I
I
like
hope
it.
it comes back. I hope it does. So what is your views, man? Do you have any like methodology on healthy living or exercise? Do you have like a pretty strict schedule on how you kind of keep up your mental fitness, and how do you kind
Hmm.
of view I know toy photography, it really does affect toy photography, but how do you view yourself as a
Right.
human? Like, what do you do in your routine?
I think, like, over anything, because it's easy to say, oh, well, I need to be eating better. I need to be working out. Um, I, I don't have like a workout routine. I don't do that as much
Okay.
as I should. I mean, for me, I think for the most important thing you can do is just be mentally healthy.
Mm,
So there's always things you can improve upon yourself, like physically, just routines and stuff like that. But if mentally you're struggling with things and you don't have a space where you can just kind of disengage and just kind of reset,
mm,
like that's kind of, to me, I think that's the most important thing. And obviously, what toy photography has become for me is kind of that space where I can just say, okay, I know I've got all these projects that are due. I know that there's stuff going on in our family that I need to focus or get accomplished, or we've got all these events that are happening. There's all this stuff going around on in our lives, but toy photography allows me the space to step back, kind of reset, just get my mind off of things that I can be stressed about. And for me, that honestly, over the last few years, has made me feel like just a little bit more leveled out. Because it's
nice.
so easy to look at life and look at all the things you need to be doing or you need to accomplish. And sometimes that list, it just keeps growing, right? Even if you check something off, you've got like five other things that are taking its place. And so it's not like doing certain regimens are going to actually solve all those problems. It's just going to keep happening, and new things are going to come up that you're going to have to deal with. But you need that mental time and that mental space where you can just kind of disengage, even if it's just for 30 minutes or whatever it is. It's super important, and it's funny how that's what toy photography's become, and that's provided me kind of the ability to kind of just mentally feel healthy, if that
And
makes sense.
It does. And you can definitely feel that whenever you post a shot, because anytime that you upload any content, I always feel refreshed. And so, because you're coming from that perspective and you're viewing this as a positive, refreshing outlook and being able to, just kind of create something that's going to inspire and encourage. And I always take away from your shots. I'm like, man, I feel good. You know what I mean? It's a
Oh,
good
thanks.
feeling. And,
Yeah,
it definitely shows in your content, so that's amazing. That's so
I
cool.
appreciate that. That right there is like one of the highest compliments. I mean, just that's what I want when I do this. I want it to be just an extension of how I feel, how my passion and love for this is. So hearing you say that, that means a lot. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips for people that are just starting out doing toy photography that you kind of like looking back, maybe had you done this, you would have either enjoyed it more or maybe progressed faster? Do you have any tips?
I mean, I know the other guys from the other episodes have provided some other really great tips. But I'd say just kind of off the top of my head, um, don't be scared to connect with people. Don't be scared to send people messages and just straight up ask them, "Hey, how did you do this?" Or "What are your camera settings?" Because again, people generally are more flattered by that. Like, "That's a cool shot. How did you do that?" So
Right.
being just stepping out and saying, okay, I want to ask these people questions. Don't look at anybody as like some kind of legend or whatever. We're all people. So we've got numbers on our accounts. We've got followers. We have likes, whatever. But we're all in it together. So just reach out. Be honest. Ask questions. Um, the worst thing you can do is not do anything. So if you want to get into it, you want to try it, don't let anything hold you back. Like, oh, well, I really need a nice camera, or I can't shoot with my phone. Just do it.
Mm.
And if you kind of start getting that routine, you can figure out like, okay, I really love doing this, and let's just take the time and start growing your tool set. Upgrading cameras, upgrading your process, whatever it is. Um, just take that first step. And even when I go back and look at my old stuff, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's okay. I could do way better now because I've taken those steps, and I am to the point where I've had a little bit more experience and have understood different techniques, and I've got a little bit more knowledge. So if I tackle that again now with the 3 years experience, or I could do it better. But it's cool to go back and look at where you started and how far you've come. So even if you feel like you're going to start and your photo's going to look terrible, that's still a cool part of the journey, going back and looking at where you started and how much you've improved. Um, let's see what else. Another thing I know everyone has mentioned, like, you got to be passionate about it. Like,
Mm.
if you don't love what you're shooting, don't shoot it. That's a waste of your time. Don't just get something because somebody else made it look amazing, and you want to recreate it. Like, if whatever it is you love, and whatever you have in your house, if you're collecting things, if it's pops or Black Series figures or Hot Toys or anything, if it's McDonald's toys, it doesn't matter. If you're passionate about something, let that be what you focus on. And then everything else, your creativity will come from that. So don't try to like say, oh, I want to be a really great 1/6 photographer. If you're not passionate
Nice.
about it, then it's not worth it. So do what you love, and everything will kind of come from your natural inclinations and passions.
That is an
So
amazing tip, man. I really can say that I have transitioned into that kind of mindset over time because I really struggled, with the keeping up with the Joneses attitude
yeah,
when I first started toy photography because, you see all these figures that everybody's getting and you want to jump in the bandwagon and feel like you're in with the crowd. And
yeah,
like you said, it's like if you don't enjoy it, if you don't find this enjoyable, if you're just doing it to just fit in, like, man, just take a step back,
right,
be like, okay, is this really something that I enjoy? And like you'd
exactly.
mentioned earlier, in the previous segment, I love the Mezco figures. And
Hmm.
not all the Mezco figures are for me. I
Right.
really
Yeah.
don't like horror figures. Like
Yeah.
if
I'm the
you
same way.
follow 112 Collective, I really shy away from reposting anything that's the slightest bit scary because
Right.
I just don't enjoy it. So,
Yeah.
I don't have any sort of hatred towards people that do enjoy it.
No, no.
I just don't enjoy it personally. So,
Yeah.
um, every once in a while I'll sneak in a Freddy versus Jason, just, for the people out there. They're like, man, why don't you share my, Friday the 13th shot? And I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
will. I'm just gonna wink. I'm gonna, wince through this. But,
Exactly. Yeah.
like you said, like just enjoying toy photography, finding things that from your childhood that you loved and being able to incorporate that because so many action figure companies now are producing figures at such a premium and affordable way to be able to do for toy photography. And it really does seem like the companies are producing it specifically for toy photography
I
and for
think
toy
so. Yeah.
photographers. It's no longer, the collectors out there who are kind of dominating the market. It's the
Hmm.
toy photographers and it's the
Yeah.
people out there who want the articulation,
Yeah.
and the companies are responding and they're able to say, how can we make this able to be photographed better? How
Yeah.
can we make this, able to look more realistic? And
Yeah.
that's such a enjoyable thing too. So if you're not out there and maybe you don't know what you like, maybe you just, I recommend, like Jason said, pick up a Black Series figure, pick up a Marvel Legends figure.
Hmm.
Go out there, they're affordable, $20. Just go out
Yeah.
there, pick one up, pick up a Spider-Man figure, pick up a Batman figure, and just kind of try it out. And if you don't enjoy it, then you can know, instead of investing in a Hot Toys and saying, "Oh, I really don't enjoy this,"
Yeah. Right.
and then trying to recoup that money is difficult, especially with Hot Toys. But
Yeah. No kidding.
so yeah, man, that's an incredible tip. And I just want to just kind of close it out here, man, and just say
Sure.
thank you so much for coming on the episode. It's been an amazing, amazing episode. I know so many people are going to gain so much from this conversation, and so many people are going to be able to use this as a resource. So just thank you, man.
Oh, well, that's very, very kind of you to say. I love, you and I could probably go on for another couple of hours, just because again, it's what we love. And so,
Yes.
it's fun. It's fun to do and be a part of. Again, it's really the community. It really is. That's what keeps us going. And, I appreciate, everything you've done. And now with the podcast, just listening back to the previous episodes and getting to know these guys a little bit better, hearing it from their perspective and through their voice, it gives more value to everything we do. It's not just about what we see on our screens, what we're scrolling through, but knowing that behind every account, there's an actual person, and we get to hear more about who they are, what motivates them, what they're passionate about. I love it. I'm having a blast. So to be on the show, to be here talking with you is a pleasure. So I appreciate it.
Man, likewise, sir. It's enjoyable. And you said that no one's a legend, but I do consider you a legend, sir. So it's too late. It's too late.
Okay, well, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'm honored to be where I am, just within the community, and it's a blast. Yeah. I don't know where I'd
Nice.
be without it. I mean, it would be completely different. It's become such a part of who I am now,
Right.
and I'm not like embarrassed about it or anything. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It is. It definitely is. So where
Yeah.
can people connect with you on social media and the internet?
Sure. Well, at work more or less is my handle on Instagram. That's pretty much where most of my content comes from. I think I've got a Facebook page too. I just kind of post everything from Instagram to Facebook. You can look that up. But I also built a website, workmoreorless.com. And so trying to put a little bit more content that's relating to, for some of the collaborations I'm doing with different companies and things like that, having a little bit more you can dive into with some tutorials, behind the scenes type content. So I'll be pushing the website a little bit more in the coming months, but I already have a few things up there now. So got some other things. I'd love to start making a few products and kind of playing in that space, but work more or less is where I'm hoping to kind of build out a little bit more. But yeah, that's primarily where you can check out the toy photography stuff. And then if you're interested in what I do with my company, Invisible Element, invisibleelement.com, and at Invisible Element on Instagram, you can see what it is that actually puts food on my table. So
Nice. Well, there you have it. And you can find me at Dagobah_days, my personal account. You can find the 112 Collective Mezco feature page at 1.12.collective. And you can find the Toy Photographers podcast at ToyPhotoCast. And remember, everybody, we are storytellers. So get out there, go shoot some toys and have some fun. And don't forget, this is a community. So reach
That's
out,
right.
send us a message. We'll respond. Have a great day and peace out. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Toy Photographers Podcast. If you'd like to sponsor the Toy Photographers Podcast, please send a message to at ToyPhotoCast on Instagram or at 1.12.collective to get started. Thank you so much and have a great episode. Peace.